Hey there, I am Pops, and let's do another movie review. This one is Pushpa, one that has come widely recommended several times. By the way, I need to get like an RRR, an Indian cinema themed intro, don't you think? I mean, I need something there. I need something different. Have to work on that. So this one is a film, a second time I've had a chance to see Allu Arjun. I think the film is weird because people were like, "Oh, you won't like it. It's too cultural. Maybe you won't understand it or whatever." And I'm like, I don't understand why people would say that. This was a pretty straightforward story. He's basically the rise of a smuggler slash gangster from his lowly background. Um, there are some moments I don't think that connect well with American audiences. There's parts that I don't personally like, and I'll explain those. But I don't think this was a subpar film that is very entertaining. I had a good time. I would actually watch it again, particularly whenever the sequel comes out, because I guess there's one already in the works. It's teased at the end. So I'd be good with that. And I have to give him some credit that even though there are a lot of moments that play up, this is sort of like a vanity project type role, similar to some of his other films. This one, he has more of a scruffy look. It's a more gritty film. There's a big scene where he definitely gets thrashed a bit. So yeah, I liked it. But I want to break through. I want to go through, talk about it in detail. Lots of spoilers, of course, and talk to you a little bit about, I think, what works, what doesn't work, what works for Americans, not, that kind of stuff. Um, so to set up the entire premise of what they're smuggling, this rare wood, you sort of move backwards to this opening sequence from like a violin, and that there's this narration and stuff where there's like this rare wood, and it's imported from China to China. It's really interesting because it just gives you a little brief note that this is important stuff. It's hard to get. These people happen to be in this one area of the world where they can get it. It's a lot of work to get it, so therefore it's worth a lot of money, and it's a very corrupt market, just like pretty much most things are. So Pushpa is a very typical sort of Indian cinema antagonist, the alpha male, a lot of those like superhero type abilities at times. Which can be over the top and that kind of thing. And right off the bat, though, you get, him beating up police while he's trying to beat them and while he's trying to bribe them and stuff. But the bribery ultimately does work. And you see him in a factory, and you see this thing that's set up that, we don't culturally relate to, but it was easy to pick up on with like the crossing of the legs thing. Right. And he was so bold and had such attitude that their immediate response is, this dude is either going to rule the world or he's going to be like chewed up by the dogs. And I thought that was a great way to talk about someone who is sort of like anti the system, who just wants to march to the beat of his own drum and do his own thing with boldness and brashness. There's also like the layers of where he is in his family life with his mom. His mom and his dad were not married, so he's sort of like a bastard child in our language. And he's the third son, so there's like no real lineage, to the point now where they've kind of treated him like an outcast. Like he's not really allowed to be part of the lineage. He doesn't get their last name, and he's treated like, the dregs of society. He's got this very sort of like arrogance and swagger about him, about handling like this loan situation and paying off this money, because the loan shark's trying to humiliate him. So when he has the money, he makes a big deal about it. Makes this guy go around, drags him around town to say, listen, you need to fix my reputation, man. So anyway, it is really interesting to see him push back against police, being disrespectful, garnering respect, and basically like saying, we're gonna move this wood, we're gonna move this lumber right in front of them, and we're going to do this in a way that they're not going to do anything about. And this officer these officers have attitudes, and you get the songs and you get these things. And the funny part about when these officers show up the first time, very early on, there's like a singing and dancing sequence. Of course, this is that Bollywood appeal in this part of the film. And the logs are he's come up with this idea to raise them up into the trees so that unless you looked up, you wouldn't even know they're there. So, but during this sequence, we're still pretty early on in the film. You get the first interaction with Cassava. Cassava I guess is a name that means missing finger, which is a great name, by the way. Cassava is one of my favorite parts of the film. We'll bring him up a lot. I loved him. I thought he was one of the best parts in the entire film. So, and the police are, they're always trying to catch him. There's a part where he's like, "Why do you always catch my collar and not the goods? Like, you can't get me." So he's tied up and he's beaten. At one point, he's beaten and he asks for water, and he's like, "No, I don't want the water. I asked for water so he can have water because he's getting tired beating me." It's over the top. It's machismo stuff, right? And it was fine. And it kind of moves from there into meeting sort of like it's called the Reddy brothers. So there's Jaka, Jolly, and Konda Reddy. So they're like the three brothers. Jolly is the sleazy womanizer. There's jokes about him using his not his brain, but using what's below the waist. Konda is the muscle, violent, brutal, that kind of thing. And then, of course, Jaka is the more level-headed one of the three. No, I'm sorry. Jaka is the brains, runs the business. Konda is the muscle and the violent one. So I don't know if I misspoke on that, but that's what I meant. Anyway, he does get this money. He uses the money. And Cassava, of course, is thinking this is a lot. This is more money he can even imagine. And of course, he gives the money away right away, but he tells Cassava to go buy this car, and then he gives the car to the mom, right? Anyway, so he presents himself to the Reddys as an idea man. He presents himself as a way. So he comes with this idea of cutting like this milk truck in half, and they weld basically a secret floor in the bottom of it, so they can fill the top with the milk and hide all this expensive lumber in the bottom. So when the police checks, it's just milk, and it works perfectly, right? And you get this sort of like these different sequences where they're moving stuff around and not having any real problems. And he always negotiates in a way that moves up his status. He's not interested in like getting paid more. He's interested in getting a cut of the business, being treated as, I think he says, there's a quick little line about either not being an employee or a servant. I want to be a partner. I'm a partner now, right? He wants to change that relationship. So let's see. There are the musical sequences here and an Allu. So his movies, the other ones that I've seen, and this one especially, they are music videos. It's him singing, him dancing, costume changes, very out of step with the sort of pace of the film, right? So if you have more of a Bollywood sentiment, you're not going to be fazed by this. For me, most of them don't work and they take me out of the film. I think the film would be a better film if they didn't have those. I think we can have musical segments. We can have music playing and things that are happening. But the song and dance routine, him basically being a music star, seems to matter as much as him trying to be a decent actor. And he doesn't really ever be a great actor. He's more of this sort of stereotypical Indian leading man. And it's a very one-dimensional one compared to some of the other stars. He really pretty much has a similar face, not a lot of major expressions. He's very scruffy looking, so he kind of can hide behind the beard and all this other stuff. He has these little maneuvers that he does, little mannerisms and stuff, and all that's fine. Anyway, so he meets his love interest, who is Srivali. She's a very lovely lady in town, and there's this part of the story early on with a lot of screen time. They spent a lot of time on this love interest of him trying to get her attention, having Cassava involved. Cassava actually, there's a scene where they're like going to a movie, and he puts a lot of money in there to like get the looks and get the attention. But there's a lot of jokes and a lot of back and forth, and Cassava's teasing him because like, "Are she looking now? Well, how about now?" And he's like, I have to admit, there's too much of all of this. It's just too much screen time is spent on this. I wish there had been cut down and it was faster. But I will say that the Cassava and Pushpa chemistry is great. Cassava is fantastic. This guy, he reacts up, he reacts down. He thinks that when Pushpa gives him like a little bit of grief, he thinks he's going to be fired or replaced. It is very funny, but it never gets like hijinky or anything like that. I actually liked it. So there's a scene where basically things are kind of, and I will say, let me finish my thought on this relationship. Like the scene where like the money's paid for the kiss and how that's all played up is really, really weird. It makes sense later, but like I said, there's just too much of all of this and they kind of make it too complicated for what it need to be for the story. Like, we know they're going to end up together, and we know that they're both going to be in some way, shape, or form faithful and honest to get to that road. And there is conflict that's presented. I'll get to that. But some of these early stuff, for all of that, they could have easily cut that down. It could have been a whole lot less of that kind of stuff, but it was not horrible. Now, in the great scheme of this sort of smuggling gangster syndicate, it's called the Syndicate, basically, and it's above the Reddys. So Conda Reddy is sort of the top of their family boss, and think of Pushpa is in that, and then above that is Sarinu. The name doesn't really matter. I'll call him Big Boss and stuff at times, and just bear with me because I don't care about his name. He's a big baddie guy, and we'll deal with him. And Pushpa is always at odds with the different levels and the different place. Because other than Jaka, who's really is the only one that appears to be consistently level-headed, everyone else is a problem. So, for instance, he gets into it with Jolly because Jolly is like womanizing. He's got some woman that's there in one of their warehouses, basically. He's basically had his way with this woman and left her, and they got to figure out how to shuttle her off to get her to her village and that kind of thing. And Pushpa's not about any of this. So you have all of these different story elements. So you have all of Pushpa trying to rise, people pushing against him navigating different personalities. You have the love interest relationship stuff happening over here. So that's kind of the general driver of the film. It works really, really well. Like I said, there's a little too much time, especially early on, with the way the love interest stuff is handled. It just all of that could have been edited and tweaked. The dance sequences and stuff, I think, are way over the top. There's one that's good, though, when they go to this party. Well, let me back up and say Pushpa has this scene where he saves all of the logs. So it's a superhero scene, right? The police are coming. They have probably hundreds, if not thousands, of these logs everywhere. They can't get caught with them. It's basically like contraband. And he's like jumping around with this axe, freeing them all. He uses a truck. It's a fun scene, and it was creative. And what they had done is he knocks them into the river. They flow down this river. Cassava races on the motorcycle down to the dam. They pay the operator, shut the water off, so the dam catches all of the logs. So it's a win-win everywhere. Saves the shipment. Police get nothing. Everyone's happy, and it kind of elevates him significantly to get into this big party. And in that party, the song and dance works a little better, other than Pushpa being center stage. Like, that's just silly. Like, all that singing and dancing's, I don't. It could have worked in different ways. It's the Allu thing. We're trying to make Allu this he's a musical star thing. But during this scene, he hears like the big boss. So, again, above Conda, and they're getting cheated because he hears how much that guy is getting paid. So now we see the power structure. We started to see him. Pushpa gets himself right in the middle of it right away. Tries to kind of cut up a way to make his way through there. He's about sort of like getting more money. And he shows up to confront this guy. This was a really funny scene in a way. It's also like, it's the Gary Sue thing. Like, he can't be hurt. So bodies are flying like crazy because he shows up and the big boss is on the phone. I got your guy. Oh yeah, if you'd talked to me 5 minutes ago, he would have lived. I would have just killed him. And then of course he kills him. Like, you're 5 minutes late to saving the guy. It's just a power play. So Pushpa shows up talking about more money, all these different things he's doing. They try to attack him. He leaves and comes back. It's like he uses the phone to call upstream to the big boss's boss. Like, I didn't leave here because you let me. I left you because I wanted to. I'm in control. My name doesn't mean flower like you think it does. It means fire. I thought all of this was great stuff. And he's just navigating through this situation, rising to the top. He's pitting them against one another. And it's working great. And he basically just keeps moving right up the stack to the big boss. It's called Shanai, the Shanai boss. So you have the Conda level, the Reddy family. Then you have Big Boss, and then you have Shanai. And basically, he shows up directly. He circumvents all of them and goes right there with the shipment to that guy who's like, "Whoa, this is amazing," and gives him like a sample. And come to find out, he's taken the whole shipment. There's like a convoy of trucks behind him, and it was done well. And the whole game is played very, very well about how he's going to grab power. He's going to move up the ladder, and he's really motivated by this girl as well, because of his last name thing. There's conflicts with the half brother. There's flashbacks to the mom. They literally get to like engagement day, and then they basically make a big scene out of it. He ends up actually hitting his mom by accident. She's really hurt by that. He gets even more motivated to do the right thing and rise even higher. He's into it again, I think, with Jolly, because Jolly's like got the hots for his lady. So there's issues there. And that sort of gets to the point where she finally comes to him and asks for help. And then he basically just goes and just thrashes Jolly, which now puts him at complete odds with Conda. So the pinnacle of the film is this big conflict, because now he's basically he's gotten attacked. He's thrown in this pit. They set it up earlier, and he's about ready to get killed. But Big Boss attacks the Reddy family, because they think that the Reddys went directly to the Chennai boss. So it's all of this mafioso family power structure stuff that Pushpa gets himself in the middle of, but everyone shoots themselves, and you end up with like that superhero motorcycle crazy fight scenes or whatever. And there is a great scene that culminates with Pushpa taking down Big Boss's thug, razor blade guy, and did the whole 5 minutes. If you called 5 minutes ago, you guy would have made it. It was really, really good. It was really good. And it all comes together with the family having to deal with what their power structure is going to be. And they do it over at the funeral, because everybody's lost somebody. And that's when basically Pushpa gets moved up. He gets moved up. He's going to be in control. And now Big Boss is mad. Pushpa's in control. Everything's going well. And when the story kind of flashed forwards a few months, and Big Boss's wife is the sister to Razor Blade Guy. And she's mad because nobody avenged Razor Blade Guy. So she tries to attack Big Boss and cuts his throat. He survives, but it's almost like something that's unnecessary. I understand some of the elements to it, but it didn't really matter. Anyway, so Pushpa's supposed to get married, and you have all of this stuff kind of happening. And then suddenly in this last act of the film, and this was really weird because it's also like in their promotional material, this bald guy right here in the middle. Okay, so on the left, the guy with the sunglasses is the police officer early on in the film who matters. But then suddenly, giant bald mustache man shows up. He's the new police officer. He's got a dog. He's cruel and mean. And Pushpa meets him, and there's like this big hardball scene that Pushpa appears to be very submissive and very weak, threatening to puts him in cuffs at one point and jokes about, if you were in jail, I get you in jail for this. So you come back, what happens to you? You're in jail and your wife's pregnant, that kind of thing. Like just crazy police bully stuff. But all this stuff in this final act with this officer, it's almost like it basically is the setup for the next film. Basically, that little act, that all that stuff that happens at the end, it leads up to this wedding day conflict where he's not at the wedding. He's there at Bald Cop's house, and he's recounting the exact same scene again. And Pushpa had this thing where his hands get real locked. They put the gun in his hand. You think he's going to get shot. Well, here Pushpa does it to himself and shows he's the bigger man. And they strip down to be shirtless. And he's like, when you see your dog's going to bark at you, won't even know you. When my people see me, they're going to still know who I am. So it's power structure stuff for Pushpa, and it elevates Pushpa to basically being this sort of like gangster boss, mafia boss, the runner of all of this, caring about his people, caring about his thing. Now he's a family man, and he arrives, and that's kind of how it ends. It sets up the second film because, mustache bald guy is going to have revenge. So, the biggest take homes are the song and dance stuff. It's all about it, right? This worked. These songs, like I think RR did it best. I think Bahubali and KGF found pretty good compromises. There are a few parts that were a little clunkier in those movies, but it seemed like it flowed well. These were way out of it. Allu Arjun loves to have musical dance sequences like a music video, but he's the star of the concert, and it really takes you out of it. I know it appeals to those Bollywood sentiments, but it's part of what I think a lot of Americans don't like about these films, because it kind of messes up the flow, because you have this great tension of drama, this great story, and then all of a sudden it's a musical dance sequence, and you're like, okay, wait, hold on, what? And it doesn't work as well for us. By the way, what is with the sandals things? Like you don't have boots. You guys don't wear boots. It's weird seeing people doing this kind of like incredible, intense labor and not have like work boots of some kind, not having comfortable shoes, like nothing. Like it was strange seeing sandals and bare feet all the time. I know it's me. It's a weird thing. I'm sorry if that upsets anybody. I would personally have cut all of New Cop at the end, maybe have a scene at the very end with him taking over control from the old cop and coming after, setting up he's going to come after Pushpa, like he knows Pushpa. There's a whole file on Pushpa, something like that. He's brought in to bring down the syndicate, and he knows Pushpa is really in control. Something. It was like it was like an add-on that didn't need to be there, and that would have, I think, flowed a little bit better. And you still could have set up part 2. And you still could have picked up with that sort of how can he overcome with all of the conflict with the police since they're onto him. I got to be honest, Cassava was my favorite part of the movie. The chemistry of Cassava, I thought that was all good. The actors are good. I thought most of the performances are fine. The mom was fine. The girlfriend was fine. All of these different characters were fine. Most of the Reddies were fine for what they were trying to accomplish. I don't have any major issues. I'm not a big fan of Allu Arjun. I think he is more of a vanity actor and a music, song, and dance guy rather than a good performer. This didn't. I think the other ones are better. I have to be honest. I enjoyed Yash in the KGFs. I enjoyed Prabhas in the Bahubalis. Those I just enjoyed them as the better of the sort of like this alpha male action film. This heavy drama, even with some of the music and stuff being around it. So anyway, that's my take. You may think I'm completely wrong and crazy, and that's totally fine and totally cool. I said a lot really quick. It's hard to give a breakdown of this level that fast and kind of be fair. So if there's little things that you want to point out or hit me up on in the comments, I'm totally game with that. Like I said, I got to figure out some sort of credit or ed scene coming or going to make it more attuned to Indian cinema. But I appreciate all the recommendations. I am working through different films in different ways. I've hit a major snag where a couple things were available on Amazon Prime, and now I've gone in and now they're not. So I don't know if they've expired at a certain point. So now I've kind of committed that I'm going to watch I think it's called Kaithi and Vikram, and I can't because I have to watch them in order, and the first one's not available. So I got to figure out how to find that one. But I'll just move on to something else. I am enjoying this, and I will say that despite what its flaws are, this is a very good film. It's entertaining. It's kind of middle of the road for me, in sort of like there's a few of them that I consider like the very, very good. This is in that middle where they're good. And then, so it's not anywhere near the ones I would never watch. I would watch this again, and I will watch this again actually when there is a sequel. So, all right. Well, thanks for your time. I'm Pops. Consider liking and sharing and subscribing and all that stuff. I really would enjoy trying to grow the channel with you, learning more about movies in general, sharing more about American cinema with you, a lot more of our pop culture, learn about different things around the world. This is just what I enjoy doing, and I'd love to be a partner with you on it. So thank you so much for your time. Have a great time. Take care.